What were your thoughts watching this game, and what are your thoughts, on the season?
Kind of a weird game, right? We talked about it early on, in our preview show. We've talked about it in the last week that we weren't sure because we had two contrasting styles here. Washington has not played a defense close to this. Michigan has not played an offense close to this. But if Michigan could control the game by running the ball, it was going to be an uphill battle for Washington. Early on, bully ball was in full effect. You had the two chunk plays from Donovan Edwards. You had the long 59-yard run from Quorum, and it's like they better fix some stuff or it's going to be a long, long night. And then they did, but the offense could never really get going. Credit to Michigan. Their defensive backs played unbelievable tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the number in front of me. I don't know what the longest completion they had today was. They had the over-the-top play to Odunze that got called back. That was the right call, for the record, that hold. Some ticky-tack stuff a little bit, but that was the right call. But they, Michael Penix did not play well tonight. I think some of that was if you pressure a guy, he was pressured a lot against Texas, made some otherworldly throws. Didn't make those tonight. Got a little bit of happy feet. Credit to Michigan for pressuring him. And the DBs down the field playing the ball. Didn't have a ton of busts, a couple of them. But Penix wasn't able to take advantage. They had that fourth down play to Odunze that he overthrew. But the DBs were all over these guys all night and kept their head, located the ball. We didn't see those sort of heroic plays down the field for Odunze and Polk and McMillan making all these contested catches. And a lot of that is because the DBs played so well. So, shout out to Michigan. They got the job done tonight. We're good enough on offense, even though they got, it got slowed down for about a quarter and a half there, but turned it on enough in the fourth. And, the defense held strong against obviously one of the best offenses in the country. And I think we can call this a pretty complete team win for Michigan, right?
Well, this is what I want to say. I know there's a lot of stats that we have to get to. And I wrote a column about how this Michigan team almost played in a way this year where they knew this was going to happen. They had some ups, they had some downs, certainly, regardless of what you want to say about the Spygate scandal. That adversity was self-created, but also could have led to a weaker team folding because of the pressure that probably created. And it only seemed to make this team closer. And they did it unapologetically by being themselves. They didn't recruit like Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. They didn't change their offense. They didn't change their strategy. They were all in on the way that they wanted to build their team, which was through development, through experience, through finding the perfect pieces and fits to their roster. And they won a national championship the Michigan way, which I think is probably got to be the most gratifying thing about this, Dave, because they didn't have to conform or do something in a way that they didn't want to do it. And in a world where I thought it was impossible that their way could work, it ended up working. So kudos to Michigan for winning the championship their way.
And not only from a macro perspective, but from a micro perspective tonight.
Both perspectives. Right? Yeah.
And tonight, this was the game that Michigan wanted to play.
And Michigan is a great team, but Michigan was a great team that also felt like it had an immovable force behind its back, pushing it in the direction of this inevitability. Like, that's how this season felt to me. And that might sound crazy. I'm not a person who wants to talk about ghosts on here, but it does seem to me that this was Michigan's year, or always was going to be Michigan's year. And at the end of the whole thing, it became Michigan's year.
So what you're saying is you've been riding Group B silently this whole season.
It just hit me today that's what happened. I mean, honestly, watching the game, like, you're not supposed to play in the national championship game against a team that cannot be stopped through the air and watch the ball, get dropped when these receivers never dropped it, or missed when this quarterback never missed it, or, weird play calls that Washington had, trying to, assert themselves as a running team when they're not. Like, it just never seemed like that Washington was playing Washington football. They were playing Michigan football, and Alabama played Michigan football. Ohio State played Michigan football. Everybody who played Michigan football, and Michigan won.
That's true.
And they were the national champions. So, like, I don't know.
I think tonight, though, Ari, that for me, just watching that stretch from middle of the second quarter until early in the fourth, probably, it was like, okay, Washington's defense has bowed up a little bit. And I think that this is still an explosive offense. It's having a bad night, having an off night. And I was watching and thinking, Washington's one play away from this getting a real nervy game, because Michigan's offense lost their mojo a little bit after just plowing through them in the first half. Now, I think some of the mistakes that you saw Washington make tonight, some of the plays that you saw Michigan make, I think that's sort of a, like you said, it's sort of a create your own luck situation, because when you dominate the lines of scrimmage like Michigan did tonight, as much as you did and as often as you did, good things tend to happen on a football field. But in general, it did kind of feel like Michigan, you're kind of playing with fire here because your offense is sort of in a weird spot. And I literally, I said out loud at the table, hey, JJ McCarthy is going to have to make a play or two here because the running game is getting stopped up. That was when they were backed up in their back up at their 10 after that punt. I was like, they're going to have to make a play. And then sure enough, JJ makes that 31-yard run on third down to extend it. They help flip the field. They don't score on that drive, but you do flip the field. And then after that, he hits Colston Loveland over the middle for that huge play to set up the back-breaking touchdown. They needed J.J. McCarthy to make some plays in a tight spot because they weren't just road grading like they were in the first quarter, and he made those plays to set them up and get Corum in the end zone there late and put Washington in a tough spot. So I didn't feel like they had quite as much control as you did. It felt like when you're playing an offense that dangerous and they're having an off night, you're one bust, one dime, one missed tackle away from all of a sudden being in a tie game where your offense can't find its rhythm and you haven't been able to run the ball very well. But Michigan seemed to flip the switch when they needed to in the fourth quarter. Like you said, getting that pick to start the second half was huge in terms of just making sure that you keep them at an arm's length. I would have liked to have seen what the script was that Washington had there coming out of that half, but not a well-played game by either team, but it was compelling. Maybe I'm just a college football sicko. I saw a lot of complaining on social media about, oh, this is ugly, oh, nothing happened. I was very entertained by this ball game.
Well, if you were looking for the Washington-Texas game, then that means that Michigan probably would have lost. Like if they got into that type of a game where, we talked coming into the game that if Washington's receivers couldn't be covered or stopped and Michigan couldn't be stopped running, that you felt that Michigan was going to win, but Michigan couldn't be stopped running, and Washington's receivers just weren't doing what they needed to do.
Yeah.
They were dropping passes. Balls weren't being delivered on time. They were throwing laterally a lot more than downfield, which, you watch the Texas game, it was like every time they needed 9 yards, they got 17, and it was just delivered with precision. They never were in a groove. And, I just refuse to believe that is just because Washington had a bad game. I think that Michigan makes you have a bad game.
I agree with that. I think Michigan's defense, the way that they played, again, when you're dominating on the line of scrimmage like that, it just makes everything. Penix looked like he was seeing ghosts from time to time. He didn't look as confident. A lot of throws off platform that didn't need to be off platform. A lot of, the main criticism of Michael Penix for years has been he can get happy feet sometimes. And I think he took some hits early. I think it didn't help when he got his foot stepped on in the was that early in the second half?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sort of makes you a little gun shy and you're not willing to sort of, fire off of, get your feet underneath you as much as you'd like to be as accurate as you want. But I think Michigan deserves credit for a lot of that. I mean, Penix missed some throws with open receivers and clean pockets. But again, I think that comes with the stage. And when you're not sure, maybe somebody's coming off the blind side, getting ready to lay you out. Penix took some shots tonight, and Michigan, their defensive line, 8. They were able to get pressure with 4 pretty consistently throughout the game. And Penix, was able to escape, make some throws, make a few plays, but never got the big play, never got the backbreaker. And it was really, really impressive. To me, the group that should be MVP is Michigan's defensive line. That's who won the game for them tonight.
Well, just to piggyback on what you were just saying, Michael Penix had 255 yards passing, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, and 5 yards per attempt, which was his lowest yards per attempt since 2021, which is kind of surprising to think because even the Arizona State game where he didn't do anything, I guess, was better than that. So Washington's offensive line had their moments, but they did not. I mean, this is the Joe Moore winning offensive line, 2.3 yards per carry. I think that Dylan Johnson probably was not 100% in this game. They had 5 penalties against the offensive line, including the big hold on that 42-yard Odunze catch. The ankle situation, the center was pushed back onto his foot. That led to the interception by Will Johnson. Like, it did not look good